What's up everyone and welcome on Talk Vintage to me. Thanks you Roy for being here. So if you are like me, you know nothing about vintage, you are at the right place. But if you are like Roy, you know pretty much a lot about vintage, you are also at the right place. The idea behind this YouTube series is to deep dive into the world of vintage watches, thanks to your expertise. And on every video we will discover 3 different pieces. And Roy will tell you the story of the piece and also will give you the different details that you have to pay attention for such timepiece. Because if you are interested in buying a vintage watch, it could be interesting to know those details that you have to find on such a timepiece. Roy, how are you?
Thank you very much for having me. I'm doing very well.
So, you decide to take 3 watches in order to start this series. Could you introduce them very quickly, the idea behind this selection? Explain us everything.
So, when you asked me to bring 3 watches from our collection, I thought I would do sort of a 3-watch starter pack.
Perfect.
That means that if you were to begin into vintage, depending on your budget, these are the 3 types of watches that you must have.
Okay.
One of the things that brought us into the world of vintage is the Speedmaster. We're going to start from there.
Okay.
This particular Speedmaster is reference 145022-69. This one was delivered in early 1970.
Okay.
All the design cues you see on the watch, from the DO 90 bezel, means the dot is above 90.
Okay.
It means this watch was delivered before the fall of 1970. It has a step dial with a flat omega printed. That means that it was delivered between the summer of 1969 to 1974. Also, the center chrono hand has a flat bottom, sort of a diamond one. So it means it was also delivered after 1968. So just without even, if the watch is all correct, without even looking up the museum information, you can know when this watch is approximately from. Some of the design cues which are really nice on this piece are the dark blue bezel, which was used to be black. It's kind of ghosted to blue. It might continue, it might not, but it's beautiful as it is. Where my brother matched on the nice grenet strap.
Yeah.
The dial is also like a dark black tropical. And then all the tritium, nice color, all even, all there. This is really a beautiful piece. Also, the fact that the case remains unpolished, it still bears the name of the person who received it back in the day.
Okay.
The only thing I know about him, they took very good care of his watch. The nice thing about this case, it was designed in the early 60s. It was first launched in 63. First watch is delivered in 64, has a lyre lugs, and until today, Omega has pretty much not changed anything about the case, other than make it more water resistant and better materials. It's truly a timeless piece, and you can find all the information on our website.
So, with that being said, you know the details that you have to pay attention for such a reference?
Yes.
In 1 minute or 2, could you give us the story about the Speedmaster? I know that you love that piece. Could you please explain us what do you love in such pieces?
So, quick story of the Speedmaster. In the 50s, when the water resistance of wristwatches became to such a point where the Rolex Submariner was born, the Blancpain 50 Fathom was born, the Seamaster was also been around, but it wasn't yet a sports collection.
Okay.
Omega decided to do a triptych, the 2913, which was the Seamaster, the 2914, which was the Railmaster, and the 2915, which was the Speedmaster. Seamaster for diving, Railmaster to resist magnetic fields, and the Speedmaster to be a chronograph, but to also measure land speed with its tachymeter bezel.
Okay.
The watch evolved from having a metal bezel to broad arrows to having a metal bezel still, but with alpha hands. And then in the early 60s, we had the first pre-Ed White, which is the 105002, which has this hand configuration on the later series. And then the 1051263 delivered in 64, which also had the same hand configuration, except it still had a 321 movement. By that time, the early test pilots for NASA were using it.
Okay.
It was a 2998 that Wally Schirra actually wore in outer space. The story is that few astronauts bought watches in a store in Texas that they all wore together in the early Mercury or Gemini missions. And then NASA needed to certify the watches, so they ordered watches through the American distributor, to which delivered Ed White's. There was the 105003. And then subsequently, they delivered the professional model, which were the 10512s and the 14512s, which were used on different orbital moon landing missions, outer space missions, which they used the space station, space shuttle. That before that it was the Apollo Soyuz. Anyways, so the Speedmaster went from being a racing watch to being a space watch. The interesting part is that they made the watch as a civilian watch, and there was no alterations made to be used in outer space. So the watch was built correctly first time around, and it just evolved into being a better, easier to fix movement and a better case.
So while I will have a look to this one, could you introduce us to the next one?
So the next one is a Datejust 16014. The 16 means that it's a date model, which is the same for the family of Submariners and with dates and GMT. The nice thing with this watch is also the condition, because for us it's quite important. You can see that the case is quite thick, the bracelet is in nice condition, the dial is flawless, all the tritium is there. This particular watch is really cool because it's still plexi.
Okay.
But since it being 5-digit, means that they upgraded it with the 3035 caliber, which is quick set. So it makes it easier to wear every day. You don't have to go 24 hours around to change the date, which drives both my brother and I crazy. So we love the quick set. 5-digit watches are the best at Rolex for that. Then non-date ones, 4 digits are still our grail.
When this piece has been launched?
So in the 50s.
50s, okay.
Yeah, when they evolved from the early bubble backs to the big bubble backs, and then that actually turned, it's called the Overtone, that actually, they added a date. Even the Cyclops didn't exist yet. The case already had its 36 millimeter size. It evolved into different references from the plain 1600 to then the 5-digit. You have this today, which is really nice that we have bought with a Jubilee bracelet and the fluted bezel, because this was done as a more luxurious piece. And the fluted bezel reminds us of the early days of the Oyster, when the grooves on the case back match the grooves on the front, because you used to be able to open from top and bottom the same. The case evolved, it was no longer needed to have a screw from the top, screw from the back, just from the back. But as a reminder of the past, they still have this design cube, which is quite nice and still is today.
So for this reference, it arrived late 70s, right?
This reference actually arrived in the mid-70s, late 70s, exactly.
Okay. If someone is interested in that reference, what are the details that he has to pay attention to?
So unpolished is a luxury. But if it was properly done or done with care by either the brand or one time by a great watchmaker, it's perfectly fine.
Okay.
If the watch was over polished and it doesn't retain the original shape, you should stay away. The dials have to be flawless.
What does that mean?
Means
you
that...
don't know, like me, if you say it's flawless, I would say, yes, sure.
So actually, it's a very good question. There shouldn't be any large scratches or little dots, or there shouldn't be any degradation, because it's still, the surfaces are still a finish. That means either they put Zapon, or they galvanized it, or they lacquered it, or enameled it, whatever it is. It shouldn't have any shocks that alters the color. If it alters the color, let's say the whole dial had turned like eggshell or a bit brown, but it's homogeneous, that's fine.
Okay.
But if it's just like one corner because there was a water attack, or the watchmaker did too much oil, or something happened, then there is degradation. You can never go back.
Okay.
It's not like a car where you can just
remove the paint,
twist the metal, and then paint it back, and it's good to go.
Yeah.
On watch dials, since they made hundreds of thousands of these type of watches, it is not yet acceptable, and I don't think it will for such simple models. On the much more expensive and much rarer models, once you get into watches that were made one of a kind, or maybe 5 of a kind, 100 years ago, it's a little bit more accepted that the dials were touched or redone.
Okay.
But on models like the basic Speedmaster or a basic Datejust, zero acceptance.
So, condition,
Condition.
So the bezel has to be flawless. So
the bezel has to, yes, it has to retain its original shape.
Okay.
That means if you look at the bezel and everything is soft and the angles are not very sharp, it looks like it's a bit blurry. You should stay away. And if the watch looks, all the angles are nicely defined and it's thick, then it's a watch you should have on your wrist.
And also for that specific piece, that specific reference,
Yes.
there is like tritium.
So there's tritium next to the indices.
Okay.
Sometimes you have some models that have tritium inside the indices. Here you're going to have tritium on the hour and minute hands.
Yeah.
And you're going to have tritium normally in all positions, 11 position, not a 12.
Okay.
And next to the indices, and it should, when you take a loop to it, they should be whole. There are some small leeway when the watch is quite important, and let's say at 3 o'clock or at 9 o'clock or at 6 o'clock there is small degradation because people usually hold the watches a certain way. So that's when it happens. So it's a little bit accepted, but I prefer not to sell any watches like that. We prefer to really have watches where all the luminescent material is intact.
And also there is like a mention at 6 o'clock, like tea, Swiss tea.
Yes. So I was, we were talking about that earlier. It's important also to understand the different variations of these dials. And here you can see crisp, the tea, Swiss tea, which means that back in the day, this tritium glowed quite nicely. Today, not anymore because it's from the 70s. So if this watch was from the 60s, it would still have a certain glow because the composition was a bit different of the tritium. As of the late 60s and the 70s, they made it into a more economical because they realized that it didn't need to glow for 10 years.
Okay.
Because the dial could be replaced. And then when you come to the late 90s, when you had Luminova, and then when Chromolite and Super Luminova came around, you can no longer tell degradation because it still glows from 20 years ago.
And the last one?
This is the 3919. It is one of the most elegant Patek Philippe's, that's Calatravas, that they have ever made.
Okay.
The nickname that I've overheard quite a few times, they call it the banker's watch.
Okay.
Because back in the day, 30, nearly 40 years ago, finance bros, this is the type of wristwatches they would wear. It has a beautiful manual wound movement. This case is unpolished in quasi-mint condition. You can see all the gold hallmarks on the side of the lugs, which I like very much. And this tells me this watch is from the late series, because the early ones, the gold stamps were in other places. This watch comes with box and paper so that I know that it's from 2002. It has a beautiful original white gold buckle, which reminds me of some of the bows from the Patek pocket watches from a century ago. Enamel dial, it looks like dark blue flamed hand. They look a bit black, but if you look in some reflections, you can see the color difference. A white enamel dial, that's what people call it. And then you can see that this is the type of dial that was redone on some later ones where they actually specifically said émail on the bottom instead of just saying Swiss.
Okay.
The way it was specified, because people didn't know if it was just a regular dial or enamel. And then it has the clou de Paris, the 2-row clou de Paris, which
On the bezel.
On the bezel, it's a beautiful everyday watch. There's not much more to be said about it. It's just the condition, as we like to buy things to be as nice as possible. It's quite nice. Speaking about prices.
Yeah. With the Speedmaster.
So the Speedmaster, we're selling this one today for 6,000 francs, which I believe is quite fair due to the condition. Unfortunately, the original bracelet got lost somewhere, but it's easily findable with either original Omega bracelets that were made a couple years ago, which are quite nice, or you can go to Forstner with the JB Champion bracelets, or even Uncle Seiko has some very nice Omega looking bracelets, which I recommend on these type of watches, not an issue at all. This watch now, the Datejust, is 5,000 francs. Everything is original to the watch. Even the bracelet has the letter stamp on the clasp.
Okay.
As of the mid 70s, 76 I believe, they started stamping letters. Before that, until the late 60s, they were stamping the full date, 2-digit dates, like 64.
Okay.
And then in between the late 60s and mid 70s, which is blank.
Okay.
Which is kind of funny. So if you have a blank bracelet, it's correct, but only for a certain time period. Again, all the references and the end links and the blades between the lugs, the movement, the case back. It's important since we take everything apart and we check everything. Everything has to match. And this is going to be 11,800 francs for this mint, unpolished 3919 G like Geneva.
Roy, thanks a lot for this first episode. I hope that you find it interesting and you learn a few things about those pieces. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to write it down in the comment part or send a text to Roy, and see you guys around. Roy.
Thank you.
Thank you.